Welcome to week 9 of my series Paint and Meditate, the painting challenge where I use The Color Cube by Sarah Renee Clark and Bible verses turned in from all of you to restrict my color palette and to be the inspiration behind the painting. This week's colors are mint, Kelly green, orchid, blush, and turquoise. So fun. And our verse will be Deuteronomy 1:11. All right, let's get painting. I'm just gonna say it right off the bat. I think this might be one of my favorite paintings I have ever done. The Lord took me on such a journey as I studied today's verse, and I am so excited to share it with all of you, and I pray it will encourage you too. We are going to see how this verse plays out historically, as well as how it speaks to us today in our personal walks of faith. So be sure to listen through to the end for all the juicy goodness from the Lord. But first things first, let's read the scripture. Deuteronomy 1:11. May the Lord, the God of your fathers, make you 1,000 times as many as you are and bless you as he has promised you. To set the scene for this verse, let's take into account the overall picture of Deuteronomy. The people of Israel have been in the wilderness for 40 years, and they are finally getting ready to enter into the land God had promised them. Before this happens though, we have Moses recounting all that has happened leading up to this point. Today's verse is where Moses is recalling the events found way back in Exodus 18:13 through 27. He is remembering when they first had been delivered from Egypt. Moses is leading this great host of people, yet it was too much, and upon his father-in-law's advice, he appoints leaders amidst the tribes of the people to help manage and to bring some order to the craziness. And in the midst of this seemingly normal planning and organization taking place, Moses speaks this blessing over the people. He's like, man, the Lord has made you guys so many. It's too many. I can't manage you all on my own. But also, may he continue to multiply you just as he promised you. Okay, what promise is Moses referring to here? Well, another blast from the past, Moses is recalling the promise God made to Abraham all the way back in Genesis 15:5 through 6. And he brought him outside and said, "Look toward heaven and number the stars, if you are able to number them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." And he believed the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness. God promised to make a great nation out of Abraham, that his offspring would be as many as the stars. And here, generations later, Moses is speaking to this great nation who are the descendants of Abraham. This is where God started to take me on a wild journey and gave me the vision for this painting as I meditated on all of this. What makes this also amazing are the details within the growth, starting with the fact that when God made this promise to Abraham and Sarah, they could not bear children. They were old and beyond the time of giving birth, but God promised that it would be Abraham's own son, his own flesh and blood, through which he would bring this to pass. Sarah and Abraham had to wait for this promise of just one son who was born from impossible circumstances. God's faithfulness to this promise continued on through Isaac, their son, then to Jacob, who later would be called Israel, his 12 sons, who became the tribes of Israel, and on and on. And within each of those stories, there were obstacles they all had to face that seemed impossible to surmount, yet God continued to be faithful through it. And then even more odds to overcome came along with Joseph, the youngest son of Jacob, who was betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. But God did not forget his promise, and with time he became the right-hand man to Pharaoh, which led to his family thriving in Egypt. They continued to grow and multiply, living well in this nation. They became so great that after Joseph had passed away, and now this new Pharaoh came up, he felt threatened by the numbers of the Israelites, and he set out to make life hard for them, oppressing them into slavery. Yet God was still faithful to the promise of Abraham, growing them more and more, even in a time of feeling hopeless and weary. Through Moses, God delivered his people to bring them into their own land, to keep the promise that they would be their own great nation. Okay, so what's with the history lesson? The point is, when God has made a promise, he is always working to fulfill it, even when it seems the opposite. Through all the ups and downs the descendants of Abraham faced, God was still staying faithful, growing the people into a great nation. This encourages us that even in our own lives, in the things God has spoken over us, we can trust him to be faithful, even when it feels impossible. Even if we feel in the dark, even in all the obstacles and dead ends, he is still working. I'd love to hear about other ways the Lord has been faithful in your life. Let's give God the glory and build one another up in the comments below. As you can see, the painting was full of imagery surrounding all of this. The stars here representing not only the promise made to Abraham under starlight, but also how even through the darkness, God is faithful. The doorway representing the transition between the promise spoken and the promise fulfilled. The lush land on the other side of that doorway represents the actual promised land we are reading about for the Israelites, but it also represents the promises of God in general. And the rainbow pathway, the representation of God's faithfulness that we can stand on, that he will fulfill that which he has spoken. All of this, the Bible studying and the painting process, was so encouraging. And for me, the best part was in the final perspective he was giving me over this entire passage and message of his faithfulness. The initial promise to Abraham, while such a blessing and gift from God to him, it wasn't just for the sake of it to give a blessing to Abraham. The Lord had an even bigger plan and promise that was already in motion. As I mentioned at the start, the Lord kept taking me back and back through the Bible, through the history of this promise. And our final stop is all the way back at the beginning. Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. The fall. The moment Adam and Eve sinned, it created a fracture between God and mankind that was seemingly impossible to mend. But in this verse, we see that at the moment of the fall, God was already preparing the way to redeem our relationship to him and to save us from eternal suffering. Abraham's promise was one piece leading to the ultimate blessing of salvation brought forth through Jesus, the offspring foretold to crush the serpent's head in this promise long ago. Jesus' death, the serpent's bite, but his resurrection and defeat of death, the ultimate blow to the devil. Jesus became the bridge, not just for Israel, but for all humanity, that allows us to cross over from death into the eternal life with God we were always designed to know. The bridge between the promise and the promise fulfilled. The blessings God has for us in this life are so beautiful and are truly a gift for us to enjoy. Yet still, they are so much bigger and go beyond just being for us. This verse reminds us that God is not only faithful to usher us into the promises he has spoken over our individual lives, but that when they are fulfilled, the blessings received serve an even greater purpose, to pour out the same love and grace we have been given by the Lord, to be a blessing to others, and to continue to point everyone to the ultimate blessing of salvation and a relationship with our Creator, available to any and all who would receive it. The bridge has been gapped. The door has been opened. Let us with courage take that step of faith and enter into the joy of God's plans and promises for our lives, the greatest of which is the pure delight of being in his presence. To see the other paintings from this series, as well as other creative videos that help cultivate a closeness with God, check out these next. Thank you so much for watching. This has been KO, here with you to create eternal perspective.